Welcome to Believe in Chargers. Unfortunately, coming off another loss. Felt good about the loss against Buffalo Low. They played great. Both sides, all three phases really played great in that game against Buffalo. Think about Cameron Dicker with the 5 field goals. J.K. Scott routinely flipping the field. And, both Easton Stick running that offense and the way that Khalil Mack and everybody on the defensive side set the tone. You felt really good coming out of that game. And unfortunately, coming out of Denver, you feel good about the way the defense played a heck of a game. Unfortunately, the offense took a pretty big step back in that one, whether it was penalties by arguably one of the best players on the team, Rashawn Slater, just 2 back-breaking holding penalties, one at the end of the half that took 3 points off the board probably, as well as Cameron Dickers kicked the ball, and just Easton Stick not quite building, taking that next step. Took a step from start 1 to start 2, and then unfortunately took a bit of a step back, missed some throws, and just didn't quite perform at the level that we had hoped. Just to feel this thing kind of build with some positive momentum going toward the end of the season.
Yeah, I thought the same, Money. And also just to add on to that, you saw the Chargers, you wanted to see them go out and win, especially with 2 backup quarterbacks. Denver played their backup quarterback. Chargers played their backup quarterback. You kind of wanted to see that was a measuring stick. What's in the shelves? What's in the cupboards? And like you said, Stick just didn't seem efficient enough and consistent enough. He showed some great running ability. The quarterback draws and showed his athletic ability once again this week, like you're saying. But just the inconsistency, missing some passes. We got a Pro Bowl type of kicker, missed the field goal. Just like you said, all 3 phases, defense played a lot better, played well. But the consistency as a unit, I didn't see that as a team as much as we saw it the week before against the Bills.
Yeah, I think everybody knows I'm a Cameron Dicker apologist, so I do want to make, because I don't know if it was shown, it was just in L.A. and Denver market only games, so you don't have the 10 cameras, you don't have all the super slow-mo, but that ball was blocked. The right side of the line got completely collapsed, and Zach Allen got a hand up and tipped that ball. That's why it ended up sailing. The way they described it in the broadcast was that it sailed wide right. No, it was tipped and it got redirected. Right. So I guess it's a fresh wound right now. Justin Tucker did not have a good season. He had an absolutely, poor season by his standards, and that he's in the Pro Bowl instead of Dicker, I think is pretty upsetting for someone that had one of the greatest seasons in the history of the NFL in terms of kickers go. I think it's a shame that he didn't get the nod for the Pro Bowl. But to your point, and I guess almost to my point, here we go, and I do this regularly. People that watch the show know, contradict myself from one
we love you. You're the best.
Right, but like the thing about Stick that I'll give him a pass for, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say Stone Smart was the fastest receiver on the field. Their tight end, their former Riverside Community College quarterback at tight end, was probably the fastest receiver out there. And I just bring it up to maybe set up the conversation, Lo, about the future. They do not have explosive players. Like, they had no speed on that field. As great of a job as Alex Erickson did at grabbing balls and, moving the chains. And they just, like, and I think that's kind of what the Vic Fangio defense, the thought behind it is, right? Put a shell on it and eventually, or put a ceiling on it, put a lid on it, and eventually they're going to make a mistake. Eventually, you're going to get the Rashawn Slater holding penalty. Eventually, you're going to get Easton Stick missed a wide open guy on a 3rd down, and now we got a punt. Eventually, you're going to get Austin Eckler fumbles. And that's what happened in this game, is they had the drives would start, and they had a couple good plays, and here's a couple first downs, and then you get behind schedule, and you just can't dig out of that hole. And I think it's something that the new general manager and head coach and everybody that's involved with this organization moving forward, they just have to address. You have got to get somebody out there that is explosive, that is fast, that can grab a ball on a quick slant and go. And they just, man, it was so evident in that game that is what this offense is lacking.
It is. And like you said, when you get guys like Eckler, who's a veteran, who's a good pro, the fumbles this year on crucial situations and the timing was absolutely ferocious. And I think moving forward, whoever's going to be the head coach or the GM, the emphasis needs to be on the detail, the attention to detail, the small things. Okay, we're going to do more ball drills where guys are going to catch the ball. We're going to do more jug drills, and we're going to go through different things that are going to, where guys are stripping, you go through the line and guys are pulling and tugging at the ball. You got to go back to those drills that guys hate, those drills that, this is for Pop Warner, this is for Pee Wee, because Matt, it showed its rear ugly head week in and week out, those little fundamentals. Okay, walkthrough where it's okay, who's on and who's off. Okay, challenge guys. It's attention to detail. It's where you're challenging guys. Okay, I want every single running back. Okay, now we're going to line you out of the backfield. Okay, you're in the double position. The double position means the middle position. So that means that you have to be off, or who's going to be on. If you're taking the point, which guy's off. So you need to go over the basics. The basics of this team. You saw it week in and week out, guys lining off. Guys who should have been on, they were off the ball.
Right.
And they're using the hand wavement that, hey, I'm off. That's so identifying that they're off when they should be on. So that just goes to show you there is a disconnect in the attention to details, and that's from a physical point. Attention, hold on to both points of the ball instead of getting stripped. Okay, no air in between the back, or they can't punch underneath. You got to clamp down on the ball. All those little fundamentals at times reared its ugly head for this team, Matt.
Yeah, I think, and you want to talk about fundamentals and little things, and it's a big thing, but it's often not talked about because everybody wants, sack production. They want turnovers created, forced fumbles, interceptions. Where are the sacks? And how about tackling? But just someone that can tackle. You think about the Lil Jordan Humphrey touchdown, and first,
yes,
you got a Sangbasi who, God love him, he's trying his butt off, and he's someone that was picked up off waivers, and he's out there, and he gets burned right off the beat. And then you have, literally 4 missed tackles. Four missed tackles on the way to a 54-yard touchdown. So,
brutal.
Yeah, if you're going to play corner, you got to be able to tackle in this league because it's a passing league and passes are going to get completed. And the way PI is called and holding is called, it's hard to get physical prior to the catch. So you better be sound after the catch. And, I think if there's 2 things that there's 3 things that I took away more than anything from this game. One is, we talked about it, lack of explosiveness on offense, particularly at the wide receiver position. That's got to be figured out. 2 is, the secondary is going to have to be addressed as well. And you better make sure your corners can tackle. And then the other thing too, Lo, in a positive is, I am now watching Brandon Hymus, who's a third string center who has not been able to get on the field in the 3+ years he's been here, play pretty darn well. I watched a 5th round pick in Jordan McFadden sub in for the injured Zion Johnson, the number 17 overall pick, and I didn't see much of a difference. I think, for either however they're coaching it up, but I think it's something to kind of think about moving forward, right? When you're talking about a team that is, $40 million over the cap, that they're going to have to figure all these things out to get to a point where they're below the cap. They made Corey Linsley the highest paid center in the league. They invested a 1st round pick in a guard. So if you need to sort, they just invested, a bunch of money. Now tackles are different. I get that. That's a different deal. But I think when you're talking about having a top 8, maybe a top 5 pick, there are things that are going to be available to you. The tackles in this class are really good. Fashanu out of Penn State, Alt out of Notre Dame, one of those 2 guys is going to be there. The wideouts, Adunze, my gosh, what that dude did to Texas and how he's been, all season long for Washington at the wide receiver position. You got Neighbors out of LSU. You may see Harrison slip. You very well could end up getting Marvin Harrison Jr. sitting in the laps of the Chargers. I think that's going to end up being the debate, right? Is feel good about the interior line, however we want to put it together. Is it a tackle? Is it an explosive wide receiver? Like, those are sort of the things that I started thinking about as we were flying home from Denver on New Year's Eve, and kind of what you're going to start discussing as you move forward.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And for me, I look at the tackle position. You talked about the kid from Penn State, who's going to be the guy. And the only reason I'm going to build in the trenches because you have your guy of the future at the quarterback. Right. If your quarterback is upright and you give Herbert time, Herbert can hurt you. Now you already have Slater. Slater's going to play a lot better. You understand he's been injured, coming off injury, so it's going to take him a year. This year wasn't a great year. We get it. But we know we've seen him play. That this guy can play and is still an elite tackle. So now you go get another bookend tackle. That now you got a guy that you have under contract for the next 5 years. That it's a rookie deal. So I checked outside. You already know you have a center staying healthy. Lindsey, if he's healthy, you have a good center. You look at Zion, you look at the guards, and that's another thing. We're talking about basic fundamental. The guards you picked in the 1st round, It's attention. A lot of coaches think when guys, because they come out of college, they say, okay, I don't necessarily need to teach fundamentals. I just need to coach them, let them know what to do. And okay, just butt to butt, hip to hip. Okay, go block, ace up, block up. Instead of saying, okay, let's get into details. Let's watch the footwork. Let's watch you sit. Let me see you sit in a chair. Let's do those things. Those are the things, because you see he's strong, he's physical, but he whiffs sometimes, overextended, getting in bad positions. It's not a lack of strength and talent. It's the small things. So that's where I go back to the techniques and the fundamentals that coaches need to start saying, okay, I know this guy's athletic. You see him come off the ball and some just rail great. So when you're like, where's that guy the whole game? Well, that guy's not there the whole game because the details, attention to details, and the technique's not there, Matt. So those are things. There is enough talent on this team, even though over the cap, you're going to have to shed some guys. We don't know if it's going to be Bosa and all the things are going to happen. But there is enough talent on this team that you still should make the playoffs. You still should be a good team moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, remember, it's not just sort of best player available when it comes to the draft. And I know we'll get into this later after the season, but we're just in the middle of it right now. But I think it's important, and I pulled up, and so I was looking off camera a little bit there for a second. You're not going to get, or the chances of you getting an elite tackle later in the draft are almost zero. Rarely do you hear about the tackle that was drafted in the 4th round and turned out to be. Those dudes are going high, and after they're drafted, like Trent Williams, that doesn't happen. Teams do not let guys like that go. That was just a weird confluence of events that allowed him to leave Washington and find his way to San Francisco. That almost never happens. Tackles are going to re-up because they're hard to find. So I'm looking at the wide receivers. Rashee Rice, 2nd round. Jaden Reed, 2nd round. Puka Nacua, 5th round. Josh Downs, 3rd round. Trey Tucker, saw him in the slot, against the Chargers, burn him for 70 yards. 3rd round with an extra pick. Like, you can find receivers.
Yep.
If as great as those guys are, as Neighbors and Harrison and Adunze are, like, you're going to be able to maybe get you a receiver. And that's the other thing. All the Charger fans are getting excited about Brock Bowers and now be in a position to sign Brock Bowers or to draft Brock Bowers. I get it. Give me the last time a tight end taken in the top 10 has made an impact. I mean, dude, they took Kyle Pitts ahead of Jamar Chase, ahead of Penei Sewell, ahead of Rashawn Slater. Like that, it doesn't work out for whatever reason. That position, you look at last year, Dalton Kincaid in the 20s, Sam Laporta, top of the 2nd round. You're going to be able to get Kraft, in the 2nd round. You're going to be able to find your guys in the 2nd round like that.
You say it all the time.
Yeah.
You say it all the time. Like, to your point, I'll interject real quick. Look at Gatesy, Antonio Gates, not drafted. Look at look at Kittle in San Francisco.
Right, 4th round.
4th round. You're absolutely right. That those skill positions, the receiver, like you said, the tight end, those running backs, you can find those guys that have athletic ability that you can train, and they can become an elite player. But it's hard to get a tackle. It's hard to get that trench guy, like you just alluded to.
Right, and I think the other thing is it's not a great corner draft. I mean, there's a couple, but that would be a trade back situation. And that's the other thing to remember is you're talking about a draft now that we know the first 2 picks are going to be quarterbacks. It's going to be Caleb Williams, Drake May. Whatever order it goes in, it'll probably be in that order. Caleb first, Drake second. Well, now talking about Jaden Daniels, he's going to probably go in the top 10. And depending, with Penix Jr., it's just a medical thing. Guy's got 2 ACLs and a shoulder. If the team is comfortable, man, that dude is a baller. He can play, man. He can throw. A game changer, culture changer, program changer. What he did to Washington these last 2 years, and you saw him. Nobody threw the ball better in NCAA football this season. College football, nobody threw the ball better this year than Michael Penix. He should have won the Heisman. It's a shame that he didn't. But that's going to be a medical. And then you got Bo Nix, and we know quarterbacks tend to get pushed up. And the reason I bring all that up is now you can have that Brock Bowers conversation. Now maybe you can trade out because someone wants to come up and get that quarterback or come up and get that Marvin Harrison like the Falcons did, for Julio Jones back in the day, like the Dolphins did when they traded back up for Jalen Waddle. Like when you have elite receivers or elite quarterbacks up there, it's possible that you can now trade back, get more picks, just inject some more youth, some more talent, young talent, explosive talent into this team. And I know we didn't talk a whole lot about the Denver game, and we probably should, but I think it's something that was glaring that you take away from that game is, okay, we can kind of start to identify what this team is going to need moving forward. But Lo, I know I do want to acknowledge it just because I'm happy that it happened. That didn't happen in the Raider game when they had given up 63 points. But the fact that Khalil has 16 sacks on the season, a new single season high for him, and hit the century mark, it was a lot of fun. It's been a lot in a season of disappointment. It's been a lot of fun watching Khalil Mack sort of jump back into that fountain of youth and remind everyone that he's one of the best damn defensive ends in the league, all around,
guy.
And a great guy, and a great leader.
How do you when you and since we jumped on that, giving Khalil those attaboys, and because deserving, like you said, and just what he brings to the table, the leadership and the work ethic, and see how this guy competes at a high level. How do you handle that, man? When you're, because this is going to be it's going to be on the table. What do you do if you're this organization and a guy who's given it so much, and and you got the Bosa, who's one hell of a pass rusher, but the injuries been plaguing him for the last several years, not just a year or two. It's been more than that. So how is this organization, in your opinion, going to handle, in a position that you got to have somebody?
Well, I think there's two paths, right? And I to me, it's the other team in town that you can look at. Do you just rip that Band-Aid off? And that's what the Rams did last year. They just ripped it off. And these last 2 years, they've traded, big money players. They've moved on from big money players, and they knew, they were like, we are way too veteran heavy. Where too many guys have got too much money tied up. Too few guys have too much money tied up in contracts. And it's either going to be Ramsey or Donald, and you knew it wasn't going to be Aaron Donald. And they needed to get young, and they took their lumps last year. They took their dead cap hits last year, and this year, and now they're going to be in a great position moving forward. So I think if that's the approach, then it comes down to what kind of compensation can you get out of not paying that? Can you trade basically, if you can trade these players and get another team to take it all on, well, then now at least you get that salary off your books, and you only have to take the dead hit on the signing bonus and take that. So if someone's willing to give you a day 2 pick, that's just my opinion. I think that's probably how it goes. If you can get a day 2 pick for Bosa, for Mack, for Keenan, for Mike Williams, for those type of players, I think that's probably where they have that conversation.
So, when you're having that conversation, Matt, and you're saying, okay, whatever the coach is going to be in, when you talk about Keenan and for Mike, and of course, when you talk about Bosa and Matt, when you look at those 4 or 5 guys that we just alluded to, is this all? Do you think this is all? Or do you one of those who, if you said, hey, look, if this organization wanted to keep a leader, I know this is putting you in a tough situation, but if you said, okay, out of those 5, who is the one guy that you're saying, I'm not letting go? Who's the leader that you think, or is there a player that out of that group or 2 that you say, God, I hope they can redo something, or they can take something with the contract and maybe restructure, or or get it. How would you come into that?
Well, I think to me, it really depends on who the coach is, right? If the head coach is going to be Ben Johnson, then he may say, look, I got to have Keenan. That guy's a chain mover. He's too good. He had 104 catches with 4 games left. We can't let that go. He's clearly still at the top of his game, even at this age. If it's Jim Harbaugh, he may say, I got to set the tone. I need Khalil Mack. I got to set the tone on D. It's intellectual brutality. That's what we need, and that's what I'm all about. So I think to me, it depends, right? Certainly, you don't have to get rid of them all, but maybe that's what the coach wants to do. You think about Harbaugh when he went into Stanford, and he took a group of guys, and we've talked about it before, completely changed the culture of that program. Made them the bully, and said, you're not only the smartest guys in the Pac-12, but you're going to be the toughest, and people are going to rue the day they have to come on the farm and play you for 60 minutes, because it is not going to be fun, and that's how we're going to approach it. So if that's what he wants, he may want those players to mold. The new head coach may want him. Khalil's 32, Joey's, Keenan's 31. Like, they may say, these guys are already set in their ways. We need to turn this thing upside down. I think that John and Dean Spanos, when you look at that statement, what do they say? Reimagine. That when I hear that, that leads me to believe that we got to take a step back. Why are we losing all these close games? Why does everybody in the media and guys that played this game, say, oh, I like the Chargers this year. They're my pick. And we continue to come up just woefully short. What's going on with this organization? So that to me maybe leads to the idea of a reset.
And when you talk about reset, because I don't think this team has to, I think they need to reset or rebuild, but I still think that whatever direction they go, because of the quarterback position, I think that they can still compete. I'm not saying a Super Bowl, but they can still have a playoff type of year, in my opinion, because they have enough. They have enough talent. Let's throw another name out there. A name that I don't think anyone's talking about. And if you ask me what you say, hey, Lo, what's one of those coaches? I like Harbaugh. You and I do. But I'm going to tell you, that guy who's the Harbaugh's playing in the national title, no one's talking about him. But I want you
Kalen DeBoer?
Kalen DeBoer. Matt, go look at his track record.
Oh, he's incredible.
Go look what he's done. He's a leader of men. He knows how to resonate with youth and older players. He's a guy that that's not going to let anyone he's going to hold guys accountable the way that he coaches. I like him, and I think they're going to win the national title.
He's great. Love Kalen DeBoer. Now, it's funny you say that because I'd want the guy that he replaced, but I know Chris Peterson isn't going to come out of retirement, but talk about an incredible human being, a leader, a great coach. I mean, if that's someone that I would consider. Look, they may not get Harbaugh. Guess what? You got a guy in Washington that may just say, I'll give you $25 million a year. I'll give you $30 million a year. Come fix this disaster of a franchise the last 3 decades now that I bought him. So, it is possible that the Chargers aren't going to get him. He's going to have the Raiders want him, the Chargers want him, the Commanders want him, the Panthers want him. It's up to Coach Harbaugh to decide which situation he likes best. Now, I think they're going to throw a ton of money at him. To me, there's a very easy way to structure this thing where, you can put in a qualifier. Like if we get to the Super Bowl or wherever you want to put it, win a Super Bowl, make the Super Bowl where you lock in, where all of a sudden it activates another 3 years or another 5 years, give them a 5-year deal. And guess what? If we make a Super Bowl, it triggers another 2 years. If we win a Super Bowl, it triggers another 5 years. And now you've got your 10-year deal with all that money. So there's ways to do it for sure. And I think, if you present him with that and he looks at Justin Herbert and then, that you have the building blocks. We've talked about it, right? You've got Herbert at quarterback. You've got Slater at left tackle. You've got Thule at defensive end. Those are the 3 most important positions. And you've got talent, just blue chip talent at all of them. So, but again, if it's not him, then you get to that, okay, well, what's the backup plan? Is it Dan Quinn? And then you keep Kellen Moore. That way Herbert doesn't have to learn a new offense. Is it Jim Schwartz from Cleveland and what he's done with that defense this season and what he did with, Jim, you had a 0-16 Detroit team. He took them to the playoffs the next year. So that dude can coach. He can
coach. He was with me. I had Jimmy Schwartz with the Tennessee Titans back in the day when I played as a young, D coordinator. Him and that worked there with the Titans, and he was always been a guy that's really defensive oriented and is good coaching. He's a leader of men. He's got that aura. He's got that bravado about him. I like Jimmy Schwartz. They're going to have plenty of opportunities for some coaches out there, and it won't be a shortage. It's just, is it going to be that splash? And that's the thing that I think fans want to know, and kind of, everyone's anticipating, the Harbaugh, because you get a Harbaugh, what you're getting. I mean, he's going to have those guys tough, and he's going to have them ready to compete, especially because he already has a quarterback. It's just interesting, just kind of what the league is presenting, because of the fact there's so much talk there. Every year your team is, you're wishing and hoping, and that they get to the next level. And I think that's why it's such a disappointing year for these Chargers organization and the fans too, because you went out in the Spanos. Everyone talked about how cheap the organization can be. And like you alluded to, they're $40 million over the cap. They did everything they wanted to do to win. They brought in the coaches, brought in the players, did everything that, and still the ROI has not been there.
No, it's not. And that's why there's changes, that look, Kellen Moore was hottest coordinator on the market. They ended up snatching him up, paying him a bunch of money. It went beyond just the players. It was the coaches as well. And unfortunately, it's going to be a 5 or a 6-win season. And that's why you got changes. And that's why we're talking about next year instead of, a week 18 game against the Chiefs that could punch your ticket into the playoffs and maybe win the AFC West. And it's unfortunate that it all fell apart the way it did. So let's hope that, Isaiah Spiller and Jordan McFadden and Thule and Deion Henley, who got a handful of snaps. I wish he had got more, but maybe he gets some more snaps out there, and you have an opportunity to try to get these guys some reps, show off what, and maybe build, even though it's one game, something toward next year. But it's the reality. That's what we're going to be looking at on Sunday, and it's what we'll be talking about here next week.